Who takes responsibility for her when I walk away? Ethan Brooks asked as the electronic gate alarm shrilled across the empty schoolyard. Principal Margaret Holloway stood over him. One hand pointed toward the exit while a security guard opened his incident log. 6 feet away, Nora Bennett hugged her backpack beneath the clock reading 4:38. An unopened bottle of water rested between them. "Sir, you need to leave now," Margaret said. Ethan stayed seated. "Not while she's alone." 3 hours earlier, the inside of Ethan's delivery van still smelled faintly of cardboard, black coffee, and the motor oil that lived permanently in the seams of his navy work jacket. He had finished his final school delivery at 3:44, 2 minutes behind schedule because a box of copier paper had split near the loading dock. The afternoon pickup rush was already thinning when he returned to the curb, carrying the empty-hand truck toward his van. Car doors slammed. Minivans rolled away. A crossing guard folded her orange flag and disappeared inside. But one child remained on the bench beside the locked side entrance. Nora sat with both hands around the straps of her backpack, her sneakers barely touching the pavement. She was not crying. That made Ethan notice her more, not less. Children who cried drew adults. Children who tried hard not to cry were easier to overlook. He glanced toward the front office windows. Fluorescent light glowed behind the glass, but no staff member stood near the entrance. "Someone coming for you?" he asked from several steps away. Nora nodded too quickly. "My mom doesn't forget." Ethan checked his old wristwatch, then the school clock mounted over the gym wall. 3:47. He walked to the office, knocked, and told the woman behind the counter that a student was still outside. The secretary, Denise Porter, barely looked up from her monitor. "Her pickup is probably running late. Is someone going to sit with her?" Ethan asked. Denise gave him a professional smile, the kind meant to close a conversation without sounding unkind. "We have procedures, sir." Ethan returned to the curb. He did not sit beside Nora. He chose the far end of the long wooden bench, leaving a clear stretch of space between them. At 4:02 he went back inside. At 4:19 he tried again. Each time the answer changed slightly, but no adult came outside. A dry wind scraped leaves along the concrete. Nora's lips had gone pale, and she kept looking toward the road whenever a vehicle slowed. Ethan took an unopened water bottle from his lunch bag, set it near the center of the bench, then stepped back before speaking. "It's sealed. You can take it if you need it." Nora studied the cap before reaching for it. "Are you in trouble?" she asked. "Not yet," Ethan said. The gate mechanism clicked behind them. Metal began sliding into place. That sound finally brought Margaret Holloway outside, followed by a security guard and Denise. Margaret's expression was composed, almost sympathetic, but her eyes went first to Ethan, not to Nora. "We've asked you to leave school property." Ethan rose slowly, keeping his hands visible. "You asked me to leave. You never told me who was staying with her." Margaret's smile tightened. "This is a student safety matter. That's why I'm still here." Across the pickup lane, a parent raised a phone and began recording. The camera caught the principal pointing toward the gate, caught Ethan refusing to move. It caught Nora watching them over the unopened bottle. What it did not catch was the empty office doorway, the 3 unanswered requests, or the 41 minutes before anyone came outside. Then the guard opened his logbook, looked down at the page and hesitated, because Ethan's initials were already written there 3 separate times. The guard's pen hovered over Ethan's initials as if the ink itself had become uncertain. "You came inside 3 times?" he asked. "Yes." "Why?" "Because she was still alone." The fluorescent light above the front desk gave off a faint electrical hum, flattening every face beneath it. Denise Porter reached for the logbook before the guard could turn it toward Principal Margaret Holloway. "Mr. Ramirez handles several entrances," she said gently. "It's possible he noted routine contact." Margaret held the office door open with one hand, her expression calm and practiced. "Mr. Brooks, let's continue this. Inside. We don't want to upset the children." Nora remained visible through the glass, sitting beneath the clock with her backpack pressed to her chest. The unopened water bottle still rested on the bench beside her, catching a thin stripe of late sunlight. Ethan looked at her before stepping into the office. Someone is staying with her? Margaret's smile did not move. Security is present. Luis Ramirez glanced toward the hallway, then at the logbook in Denise's hands. He did not answer. Inside the conference room, the air smelled of dry erase marker, carpet cleaner, and coffee left too long on a warming plate. Ethan's navy delivery jacket looked darker beneath the recessed lights, the cuffs marked with dust from cardboard boxes and the faint black line of motor grease that never fully washed out. Margaret took the chair at the head of the table. Denise sat beside a laptop. Ethan was given the folding chair nearest the door. "This is not disciplinary," Margaret began. "Then why is there an incident report?" Ethan asked. "It's documentation." "Of what?" "A safety concern." Denise's fingers moved across the keyboard. The projector clicked on, washing the wall in pale blue before a security clip appeared. It showed Ethan seated outside. It showed Nora several feet away. It showed Margaret approaching with the guard. The timestamp in the corner read 4:31. There was no sound. "This is the relevant portion," Denise said. Ethan watched his own image rise slowly from the bench. On the silent video, his calm looked like refusal. Margaret's pointed hand looked like an instruction. Nora's stillness looked like nothing at all. "You were asked to leave school property," Margaret said, "after I asked who would stay with her. That distinction is difficult to verify." Ethan turned toward the screen. "Play the part before this." Denise folded her hands. "This is the exported incident clip. Play the original." "Mr. Brooks," Margaret said, lowering her voice as though offering kindness, "we are trying to prevent this from becoming something larger than it needs to be." She slid a printed form across the table. The paper made a soft rasp against the wood. At the top, beneath, the school seal, were the words "unauthorized adult contact." Ethan read each line without touching the pen. The report said he had remained near a student without permission. It said he had ignored repeated instructions. It did not say the student had been left without a confirmed pickup. "Sign here," Denise said. "It simply acknowledges the conversation. It says I created the risk. It says procedures were not followed." "Whose procedures?" The room went quiet except for the projector fan. Margaret leaned back, studying Ethan's worn jacket, his work boots, the delivery badge clipped at his waist. "Your daughter attends this school, correct?" "Lily, 3rd grade. Then you understand why we must be cautious. These situations can affect everyone involved. We would hate for an administrative misunderstanding to complicate her experience here." The words were soft. The warning was not. Ethan's thumb rested against the edge of the form, but he did not pick up the pen. Through the narrow glass panel in the door, he could see Lily sitting near Nora now, drawing in her notebook while keeping the same careful distance her father had shown her. "Leave my daughter out of the report," Ethan said. Margaret's face remained composed. "No one is bringing her into anything. You just did." Denise looked down. Margaret drew the form back half an inch, then pushed it toward him again. "Signing allows us to resolve this privately." Ethan took the pen at last. For one breath, Denise relaxed. Then he crossed out the sentence claiming the student had been under continuous staff supervision and wrote beneath it, "Child remained outside without confirmed adult pickup." He placed the pen beside the paper. "I won't sign something that removes her from what happened." Margaret's jaw tightened almost invisibly. "Mr. Brooks, you are not trained in school safety." "No," Ethan said. "I'm trained to finish a delivery. I finished mine. Your child pickup list said someone else had finished theirs." Denise closed the laptop too quickly. The projector image vanished, but not before Ethan saw a small playback bar flash across the bottom of the screen. The file was not 3 minutes long. The marker sat near the end of a recording that stretched back almost 45 minutes. The playback bar disappeared with the projector, but Ethan had already seen enough to know the school's version of events had been cut down to fit the conclusion they wanted. He could have demanded the laptop be reopened. He could have raised his voice. Instead, Through the narrow glass panel in the conference room door, he saw Nora still sitting beneath the clock while Lily drew quietly beside her, and he made a different choice. "I'm going back outside," he said. Margaret Holloway's fingers tightened around the unsigned report. "Mr. Brooks, this meeting is not finished. Neither is the pickup." He opened the door before she could answer. The hallway smelled of floor wax and the sweet, artificial apple scent of cafeteria cleaner. His work boots made dull sounds against the tile as he crossed toward the front entrance. Behind him, Denise murmured something about continued noncompliance, and Margaret replied in the low professional tone people used when they wanted cruelty to sound administrative. Outside, the wind had sharpened. It pushed brittle leaves along the curb and lifted the loose corner of Lily's notebook page. Nora sat exactly where Ethan had left her, both hands tucked beneath her thighs for warmth. The unopened water bottle remained near the middle of the bench, its clear plastic clouded with condensation. "You didn't drink?" Ethan asked from several feet away. Nora shook her head. "I didn't know if I was allowed." Ethan looked back through the office glass. 3 adults were watching. None of them moved toward her. He crouched beside his delivery bag, took out a small portable charger and a white cable wrapped neatly with a rubber band. "Is your phone dead?" Nora nodded. "Since before the last bell. I'll set this here. You plug it in yourself." He placed the charger on the pavement, stretched the cable toward the bench, then stepped back until Nora could reach it without coming closer to him. She slid down carefully, plugged in the device, and returned to her seat. Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Brooks, please do not handle the student's personal property." "I didn't." "You are continuing to involve yourself. Her phone is charging. That is not your responsibility." Ethan looked at Nora, not at Margaret. It became somebody's responsibility when everyone else went inside. For a moment, even Margaret had no answer. The late sunlight fell across the bench in narrow golden bars, catching the dust on Ethan's sleeves and the frayed edge of Lily's purple backpack. Lily tore a blank page from the back of her notebook, folded it once, and pushed it along the wooden seat toward Nora. "You can draw while it charges," she said. Nora glanced at Margaret as though waiting for permission to accept a piece of paper. Then she took it. Lily did not move closer. She simply returned to her own drawing, tongue pressed lightly against the corner of her mouth in concentration. Ethan watched his daughter and felt the familiar pressure beneath his ribs, the quiet arithmetic of rent, groceries, gas, and the delivery route the school could take away with one phone call. He had spent years teaching Lily that doing the right thing did not guarantee an easy result. Now she was watching to see whether he believed it himself. Nora's phone flickered on with a soft chime. 6 missed call notifications filled the screen. All were from Mom. The earliest was time-stamped 4:21. Nora stared at them. "She called?" she whispered. "She always calls." Ethan did not reach for the phone. "Can you see whether there's a voicemail?" Nora tapped the screen with both thumbs. Her face changed, not into panic, but into the tense confusion of a child trying to make adult pieces fit. "She says she's been calling the school." Margaret stepped forward. "Nora, let's not make assumptions. Sometimes calls route incorrectly." Her voice was gentle, but she held one hand out as though she expected the phone to be surrendered. Nora pulled it closer to her chest. Ethan shifted half a step, not blocking Margaret, only making sure the child did not feel cornered. "She can keep holding it," he said. "No one said she couldn't," Margaret replied. The words came too quickly. Denise emerged behind her carrying a pale yellow pickup slip. "We did attempt contact," she said, placing the paper on the bench near Nora. At the top, beside the printed words Guardian called, was Denise's neat set of initials. There was no time written anywhere. Ethan bent only far enough to read it, careful not to touch the paper. Nora looked from the slip to the 6 missed calls glowing on her phone. Then she asked the question none of the adults had wanted to ask. If Mom called 6 times, why didn't anybody answer? Denise's professional smile faltered. Ethan's eyes returned to the unsigned slip, and he understood that the smallest act of kindness he had offered, a charger placed on the pavement, had just turned a frightened child's dead phone into the first piece of evidence the school could not control. The dead phone had made the room more dangerous for Ethan, not less. Denise Porter took the yellow pickup slip from the bench and held it against her clipboard as if removing it from sight could return control to the adults. "We need to be careful about interpreting a child's call screen," she said. "Mr. Brooks has already inserted himself into a process he does not understand." Margaret Holloway's gaze moved from the charger on the pavement to Ethan's worn delivery badge. "You provided a device to a student without authorization. I set down a charger. You continued contact after being instructed to stop. Was someone else going to help her call home?" The question was quiet enough that the wind could be heard scraping a dry leaf against the curb. Margaret's eyes shifted toward Nora, but only for a moment. "We are handling the situation. Then tell her what's happening." Nora sat very still, clutching the phone against her purple jacket. The 6 missed calls remained bright on the screen. Denise guided her toward the front office with a hand hovering near her shoulder, careful not to touch. Lily looked up from her drawing and reached for Ethan's fingers. He squeezed her hand once, then let go before following the others inside. Luis Ramirez was waiting near the security desk. His incident log lay open beneath a brass lamp, the ruled paper yellowed at the edges. 3 entries had been underlined in blue ink: 347, 402, 419. Beside each time were Ethan's initials and the same short note, checking on student pickup. Denise stopped when she saw the page. "Luis, those entries could refer to separate contacts." "They do," he said. "He came in 3 times. You were covering the north gate and the front desk. It was busy. I wrote them when he came through." Margaret approached with measured steps. "No one is accusing you of poor record-keeping, Mr. Ramirez. We are simply trying to avoid drawing conclusions from handwritten notes made during dismissal." Her tone was respectful, almost protective. But Ethan noticed she had placed herself between the logbook and the ceiling camera. "What time does the video start?" he asked. Denise answered before anyone else could. "Approximately 4:30. Exactly what time?" She glanced at Margaret. "The relevant clip begins at 4:31. Ethan looked down at the log. "Then where are the first 3 visits?" Denise exhaled softly. "The camera system does not capture every angle continuously. The front entrance camera does." Luis spoke without looking up. Margaret turned toward him. The movement was small, but it made the room tighten. "Are you certain? I watch the feed every afternoon." Ethan did not smile. He did not thank Luis or ask him to take sides. He pulled out his phone and held it above the open page. "May I photograph your notes?" Luis nodded. Denise reached for the book. "School records cannot simply be copied." Ethan lowered the phone but did not put it away. "Then make me an official copy." Margaret folded her hands. "Mr. Brooks, we may be dealing with nothing more than a timing discrepancy." "That's possible. And continuing to imply misconduct could make this harder for everyone." "I'm not implying anything." Ethan looked at Luis. "Don't choose my side. Just keep your own handwriting." The guard's shoulders eased, though his eyes remained troubled. From the adjoining office came the electronic chirp of the phone console. Denise walked over and tapped the screen dark before Ethan could read it. "The lines were overloaded during dismissal," she said. "That may explain why Ms. Bennett's calls did not come through." A small indicator remained illuminated. Beneath the glass, 2 incoming calls. Only 2. Ethan glanced at Nora's phone, where 6 missed calls from Mom were still listed after 4:21. He did not point out the difference yet. Instead, he asked Denise to write the time of the supposed guardian contact on the yellow slip. "That information may not have been recorded," she replied. "Then how do you know the call happened before I reported her?" Denise's pen stopped above the paper. Margaret's professional expression tightened at the corners. "This is becoming unnecessarily adversarial." "A time is not an argument," Ethan said. "It's just a time." The office door opened behind them, and Owen Price, the district's on-call IT technician, entered carrying a black laptop case. He smelled faintly of rain and cold metal, and his glasses fogged as the warm air hit them. Margaret explained that they needed confirmation the exported security clip accurately represented the incident. Owen connected his laptop to the conference room system and studied the file without speaking. The blue-white screen reflected across his lenses. He checked the duration, then the file properties, then a line of metadata too small for anyone else to read. "Is something wrong?" Margaret asked. Owen's fingers stopped above the keyboard. "Not necessarily." "Then what is it?" He turned the screen slightly away from Denise. This wasn't an automatic incident export. The projector fan hummed in the sudden quiet. Someone manually selected the start and end points. Ethan looked from the 4:31 timestamp on the screen to the 3 earlier times in Luis's logbook, and for the first time the missing minutes no longer looked accidental. "Someone chose those minutes," Owen Price said, keeping his voice low. Margaret Holloway did not look at Ethan. She looked at the laptop. "Manual exports are standard when staff prepare an incident report." "They can be," Owen replied. "But the report says this clip represents the interaction." The conference room seemed to contract around the words. A chair leg stopped scraping against the floor. The air conditioning vent clicked on overhead, and for several seconds its dry mechanical breath was the loudest sound in the building. Denise Porter recovered first. "This is becoming technical in a way that may confuse the actual issue." Ethan remained standing near the end of the table, his delivery jacket still zipped against the cold he had carried in from outside. "The issue is simple," he said. "Was the child alone before 4:31? Margaret folded the unsigned report and aligned its corners with the edge of the table. "Mr. Brooks, we are prepared to resolve this without escalation." She opened a second folder and removed a single-page agreement. The school would classify the incident as a misunderstanding. Ethan would acknowledge that he had remained on campus after being directed to leave. In return, the district would not request that he be barred from school property. "This protects everyone," Margaret said, "including your daughter." Ethan read the page slowly. The paper smelled faintly of fresh toner, and one corner was still warm from the printer. Outside the conference room, Lily sat beside Nora under the watch of Luis Ramirez. Nora's phone was charging between them. Lily had drawn 2 small figures beneath a yellow sun, separated by a long wooden bench. Ethan's own phone vibrated in his pocket. The caller was his route supervisor. He stepped into the hallway but stayed within sight of the girls. "Ethan," the supervisor said, "the school contacted dispatch. They've suspended your campus route pending review." Ethan looked through the glass at Lily's bent head. That route paid nearly a third of his weekly hours. It covered the grocery money after rent and most of the insurance payment on the van. "How long?" he asked. "I don't know. Sign whatever they need you to sign, and maybe we can get you back on tomorrow." Ethan closed his eyes for one breath. "Keep my GPS log from today." "Your what?" "The van's route history. Don't overwrite it." "You think this is going legal?" "I think times matter." He ended the call and returned to the table. Margaret slid a pen toward him. "Your employer would like this settled as well." Ethan looked at the agreement, then at Lily through the glass. She noticed him watching and gave a small, uncertain smile. He had told her more than once that courage was not the absence of fear. It was deciding what fear was allowed to make you do. "If I sign this," he said, "the record says your procedure worked and I refuse to cooperate. It says there was confusion." "There wasn't confusion about the child being outside." Denise leaned forward. "Mr. Brooks, no one is denying that you believed you were helping. Belief isn't the problem." Ethan placed one finger beside the line requiring his signature. "This says I created the safety concern." Margaret's tone softened. "You have a family to consider. That's why I can't sign it." The pen remained untouched. "I can replace a route," Ethan said. "I can't ask my daughter to respect a lie I signed." The room fell still again, but this time the silence carried weight. Margaret's hand slowly lowered from the folder. Even Denise stopped arranging the papers. Owen turned back to his laptop and opened the file properties. He checked the server path, Then the district retention settings. The original footage is still stored, he said. Margaret's eyes sharpened. For how long? 30 days. Can you confirm the clip was altered? Trimmed, Owen corrected. Not altered. And trimming alone doesn't prove why. He tapped the trackpad. A new window opened, displaying the export history. The clip had been created at 5:06 p.m. That's after the preliminary incident report was drafted, Louise said from the doorway. Denise's face changed only slightly, but Ethan saw her thumb press hard into the edge of the clipboard. Margaret answered with practiced calm. The sequence is not improper. Staff often prepare notes before media is collected. Who selected the start point? Ethan asked. Denise looked at Owen. Owen looked at the export record. The user account belongs to the front office. Several people use that station, Denise said quickly. Margaret closed the folder. We will review this internally. Owen did not move. Instead, he opened another panel and checked the preservation status. I'm placing a retention hold on the original file. Margaret's expression remained polite. That requires district authorization. I requested it when I saw the manual export. His email notification chimed. One line appeared across the top of the screen. Preserve all video, call logs, dismissal records, and access history. Board safety review pending. Nora looked through the glass as another adult entered the lobby carrying a leather portfolio. The woman did not rush toward the child or announce who she was. She stopped first at the security desk, looked at the 3 handwritten times in Louise's log, and asked to see the name on the dismissal record. The woman with the leather portfolio did not ask for Ethan Brooks. She asked for the dismissal record. Denise Porter's hand paused above the keyboard. That information is restricted. Then verify my access, the woman said. Her voice was calm, but Owen Price looked up from his laptop as though he recognized something in it. Margaret Holloway stepped into the lobby and offered the polished smile she used when control needed to look like courtesy. Ms. Bennett, we weren't expecting you until the board review. Nora's head lifted at the sound of the name. Mom! The woman turned. For 1 second, every line of authority left her face. She crossed the lobby quickly, then stopped before reaching her daughter, as though remembering the room was still watching. Nora stood and pressed herself against Claire Bennett's coat. Claire held her with one arm and looked over the child's shoulder at the unopened water bottle on the bench, the charging cable on the floor, and Ethan standing several feet away. Are you hurt? Claire asked. Nora shook her head. He stayed. Claire's eyes moved to Ethan, but she did not thank him. Not yet. She looked at Margaret. Why was my daughter still outside? Margaret kept her voice measured. There appears to have been a breakdown in communication involving an unauthorized adult who declined to leave campus. Claire's gaze returned briefly to Ethan's delivery badge, his dusty sleeves, and the unsigned form on the conference table. The evidence on the surface still looked complicated. Parent had been unreachable. A driver had remained near a child. Staff had documented a safety concern. Claire did not choose a side. Open the record, she said. Denise looked toward Margaret. All of it, Claire added. Owen rotated his laptop and entered the district authorization code Claire provided from memory. A gold seal appeared beside her name. Board of Education, Student Safety Committee. Ethan felt Lily's fingers close around 2 of his. The mother he had assumed was simply late was the person authorized to preserve every record in the building. Claire carried Nora into the conference room, settled her beside Lily with colored pencils and a cup of water, then asked Louise to remain near the open door. She did not make Nora retell the afternoon. She did not turn the child into evidence. You can draw, she said. The adults are going to fix the adult part. Then she took her seat at the side of the table rather than at its head. Owen opened the dismissal system first. The screen displayed rows of student names, pickup methods, staff codes, and completion times. Nora Bennett's status was green. Picked up. Time. 3:42 p.m. Staff ID. Porter. The printer in the adjoining office stopped mid-cycle, leaving the building in an abrupt mechanical silence. Claire looked through the glass at her daughter, then back at the screen. She was marked gone before Mr. Brooks finished his delivery. Ethan removed his phone and opened the GPS record his supervisor had preserved. His van had arrived at 3:31. The final package scan occurred at 3:44. The vehicle had remained parked near the loading curb until 3:49. "I saw her when I came back with the hand truck," he said. Owen placed the GPS map beside Luis's first handwritten entry at 3:47. The times fit within minutes of each other. Denise clasped her hands too tightly. "I may have selected the wrong student record during dismissal. It can happen when several names are close together." Claire studied the screen. "Which student did you intend to mark?" Denise blinked. "I would have to review the list." "Who picked Nora up at 3:42? "I believed a family member had arrived." "Name?" "I don't recall."
Signature.
Denise looked at Margaret. There was no signature, no adult name, no vehicle description, only the green status and Denise's code. Margaret shifted from the head of the table. "Claire, this may be a simple clerical mistake. We should not confuse a data entry issue with Mr. Brooks's refusal to follow staff direction." Claire's face did not change. "I'm not confusing them. I'm checking whether one was used to hide the other." Her phone vibrated against the table. She opened her call history and placed it beside Nora's yellow Guardian slip. 6 outgoing calls to the school began at 3:51. 2 more went to the district transportation line. None had connected. The school slip said Guardian called, but still carried no time. Owen opened the front office phone log. The console showed no outgoing call to Claire before 4:26. It also showed her first 2 incoming calls had reached the school and gone unanswered. Denise's throat moved. "The lines may have been unattended while we handled dismissal." "You told us they were overloaded," Ethan said. He did not raise his voice. Denise looked at him with sudden irritation. "You are not part of this review." Claire's attention sharpened, not because Ethan had challenged Denise, but because he had not. He simply took the yellow slip and placed it beside the phone log so the blank space where a time should have been could be seen by everyone. "You don't need my opinion," he said. "The paper is enough." Margaret reached for the slip. Claire put one hand over it first. The motion was quiet, but it stopped the entire table. "This stays in the record." Margaret drew back. A thin sheen of perspiration had appeared near her hairline. She asked Owen to pause the review until district council could be contacted. Claire looked at the green pickup status, the unanswered calls, the handwritten times, and the preserved video notice on Owen's screen. Then she looked through the glass at Nora, who was showing Lily how to draw a house with 2 front doors. "No," Claire said. "This is no longer an internal misunderstanding." She turned to Owen. "Preserve the audit history for every change made to my daughter's record today." Owen clicked into the access log. The green pickup status had not been entered once. It had been changed again at 4:56 p.m., minutes before the security clip was exported. Claire slowly closed her portfolio. "Call the board chair," she said. "This conversation needs witnesses." Owen Price clicked the final audit entry, and the room watched Nora Bennett's dismissal record change on the screen. At 3:42 p.m., the original entry had marked her as waiting for Guardian confirmation. At 4:56, under Denise Porter's staff account, it became picked up, then late pickup only minutes before the shortened security clip was exported. A second report opened beneath it. The same account had made similar after-the-fact corrections on 4 previous dismissal records that semester. No child had been harmed, but in every case the original mistake had disappeared before district review. The projector fan whirred against a silence so complete that the faint vibration of someone's phone sounded like an alarm. Denise's pen slipped from her fingers and struck the tabletop. Margaret Holloway did not reach for it. Her face had gone still, the professional sympathy drained from it, leaving only exhaustion and the knowledge that every explanation had finally run out of room. "Those were clerical corrections," she said. Her voice was dry, made to ensure the records reflected the intended outcome. Claire Bennett looked at the screen. The intended outcome was that the children were safe. She turned toward Margaret. The records were changed to reflect that the school had been safe. No one moved. Owen placed the evidence in order across the projector. Luis Ramirez's handwritten log at 3:47, 4:02, and 4:19. Claire's unanswered calls beginning at 3:51. The front office phone log. Ethan's GPS route. The original camera footage. The audio instruction to pull only the outside interaction. The altered dismissal record. And finally the still frame that had brought them all there. Nora sat beneath the clock reading 4:38. The unopened bottle of water rested between her and Ethan. 6 feet of empty bench separated them. Behind Nora, the school entrance stood vacant. Margaret's hand was frozen in the image, pointing Ethan toward the gate. "This is the frame the public saw," Owen said. Then he placed the full timeline beside it. "This is everything they did not." Claire rose slowly. Her board credential caught the white light from the projector, but she did not touch it or use her title as a weapon. At 3:42, my daughter was marked as gone when she was still outside. At 3:47, Mr. Brooks reported her. He reported her again at 4:02 and 4:19. My calls went unanswered. No employee came outside to supervise her. When Mr. Brooks refused to leave her alone, the school documented him as the danger. The air vent rattled once overhead and stopped. Someone in the back row lowered a phone they had been recording with. Margaret looked toward the district attorney, then the union representative, but neither spoke. Denise stared at the yellow Guardian slip lying on the table, its blank timestamp now more damning than any accusation. Ethan remained seated. He could feel Lily's small drawing folded inside his jacket pocket, the paper pressed against his chest whenever he breathed. He did not look triumphant. He looked toward the open hallway where Nora and Lily were safely waiting with the counselor. Board Chair Daniel Mercer cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, before this board takes action, would you like to make a statement regarding the harm done to you?" Ethan stood. The chair legs beneath him gave a soft wooden creak. He placed both hands flat on the table, not on the evidence, but beside it. "Is Nora safe now?" he asked. Mercer blinked. "Yes." "Has someone told her this wasn't her fault?" Claire's eyes lowered for one brief second. "Not yet." Ethan nodded toward the hallway. "Then do that first." The room went silent again, but this silence was different. It was no longer the silence of people waiting for someone powerful to speak. It was the silence of people realizing the man they had treated as a risk was still protecting the child before defending himself. Claire closed the file. The record will reflect that Mr. Brooks acted with restraint, maintained appropriate distance, repeatedly sought staff assistance, and remained only because no responsible adult had accepted supervision of the student. Mercer turned to the district attorney. "Prepare immediate removal of the incident report." He then addressed the school's contracted delivery coordinator by phone and ordered the suspension of Ethan's route access lifted pending no further restriction. Margaret's authority to supervise dismissal procedures was suspended effective immediately, and an independent district investigation was opened into the altered records and the selective export of security footage. Denise was placed on administrative leave and instructed to preserve every related communication. No one applauded. No one needed to. Margaret's folder slid partly from her hands, papers shifting across the polished table. She caught them before they fell, but her fingers trembled against the school seal. Claire stepped toward Ethan at last. "Mr. Brooks," she said, now speaking as Nora's mother rather than as a board member, "the evidence proves you were right." Ethan looked again toward the hallway. "The evidence proves she was left alone." Claire absorbed the distinction. The board had restored his name, his work, and his right to enter the school. But the unopened bottle still stood beneath the frozen image on the screen, and Nora still needed to understand why an ordinary afternoon had turned into a room full of adults deciding whose version of her fear mattered. When Mercer asked Ethan what the district should do next, every face turned toward the single father they had tried to silence, waiting to see whether he would use the moment for revenge, recognition, or something none of them had considered. The room emptied without applause. Chairs folded against the wall, Legal pads disappeared into briefcases, and the projector faded from white to black, leaving the conference table covered in the quiet wreckage of the truth. An unsigned incident form, a yellow pickup slip, Luis Ramirez's handwritten log, and the image of one unopened water bottle frozen at 4:38. Margaret Holloway left with district council. Denise Porter was escorted to a separate office to preserve her records and await formal review. No one shouted after them. No one needed to. By the time Ethan stepped into the hallway, Nora was sitting beside Claire and the school counselor with both feet tucked beneath her chair. Lily had placed her drawing between them. It showed the long bench, two small girls, and one figure standing near the gate beneath a yellow sun. Claire knelt in front of her daughter. "You did nothing wrong," she said. "You were not forgotten because you weren't important. The adults made a mistake, and the adults are going to fix it." Nora studied her mother's face for several seconds before asking, "Is Mr. Brooks still in trouble?" Ethan stopped near the doorway. Claire looked back at him. "No," she said. "He never should have been." Nora released a breath that seemed too heavy for a child her age. Ethan did not enter until the counselor nodded. Even then, he remained near the door. "You were brave today," he told Nora. She shook her head. "I was scared." "You can be both." Lily smiled at that and slid from her chair to stand beside her father. The district's formal corrections began the next morning. Ethan's incident report was removed, not merely amended. His campus access was restored in writing. His delivery company returned the school route and corrected the suspension in his employment file. The board opened an independent review of dismissal records across the district. Margaret was placed on administrative leave pending the findings. Denise was offered representation, required to cooperate, and later entered a disciplinary retraining program that included direct accountability, record integrity standards, and a counselor-guided apology to Nora. Ethan asked for no firings. "Consequences should protect the next child," he told the board chair. "They shouldn't become another performance." When the district asked what he wanted changed, Ethan laid out 3 requests on a sheet of plain delivery paper. No student could be marked picked up without a name and confirmation. Any child waiting after dismissal would remain with 2 designated staff members. And whenever safety footage was reviewed, the original file, sound, timestamps, and audit history had to be preserved. The board adopted the rules first at Nora's school, then across the district after the audit revealed how easily hurried staff could turn assumptions into official records. 3 weeks later, Ethan returned to the campus in his Navy work jacket with a hand truck stacked with printer paper. The air smelled of damp leaves and cold pavement. His route badge had been reactivated, but no one treated it like a favor. Luis greeted him by name. Owen lifted 2 fingers from the security desk. Near the front office, a new sign displayed the late pickup procedure in clear black lettering. Ethan read it once, then continued toward the loading dock. On his way back, he noticed a boy sitting beneath the same clock after the final rush of cars had passed. For half a second, the old afternoon returned. The empty doorway, the tightening gate, the terrible question of who would stay. Then 2 staff members stepped outside together. One sat several feet from the boy while the other called his guardian and entered the time into a tablet. Ethan did not need to stop. The system had finally learned to stay. Claire was waiting by the gate with Nora. She held the unopened bottle of water in both hands. The plastic was slightly dented now, and the paper label had begun to peel at one edge. "She kept it," Claire said. Nora extended it toward Ethan. "Because you didn't leave." Ethan accepted the bottle carefully. In the first hours of the story, it had looked like evidence against him, an object placed near a child by a man the school did not trust. Now it meant something else. It was proof that help could be offered without crossing a boundary, that kindness could remain small and still carry weight, and that one quiet choice could expose every larger failure around it. Claire looked toward Lily, who was waiting beside the van, then back at Ethan. "The board recognized what you did," she said. "But I want you to know why I believe you. Not because you're a single father. Not because you lost work. Because every time you had a chance to protect yourself first, you protected a child instead." Ethan lowered his eyes to the bottle. Anyone should have stayed. Yes, Claire said. But you did. Nothing romantic was promised. No fortune changed hands. There was only respect, earned slowly and spoken plainly, and the possibility that two adults who had seen each other under pressure might someday learn more. Nora took her mother's hand. Lily took Ethan's. For a moment, the four of them stood beneath the school clock while evening light spread across the bench and the new safety signs stirred in the wind. No one spoke. It was not the silence of accusation or shock. It was the silence that comes when a wound has finally been named, responsibility has found the right shoulders, and a child knows the adults will not ask her to carry it anymore. Ethan placed the sealed bottle in the side pocket of his delivery bag and walked toward the van with Lily beside him, while behind them 2 staff members checked the late pickup list twice. Dignity had never raised its voice. It had simply stayed long enough for the truth to arrive.